In the second half of 1943, the war was going not well. In fact, it was supposed to have been won over a year ago. Instead, the fleet was being sucked into the black hole that was the Solomons. Lots of ships and pilots were being lost, trying to hold on to what was essentially a backwater. Of course, the U.S. had lost a lot also, but they were replacing every lost ship with better ones. The IJN simply couldn't afford to play that game. And now, to cap it off, American submarine torpedoes were starting to work. Clearly, what Japan needed was a large number of no-frills, off-the-shelf destroyers that could be turned out fast. The answer was the 1,262-ton Matsu Class. Many people will say these ships should be divided down into the Tachibana class, but I'm not going to bother. Like the Akazukis, these were the ships the Japanese should have been building from even before the war. Not the Asashios, not the Kageros, not the Yugumos, definitely not Shimakaze. These guys, and lots of them. By the time they finally accepted that, of course, it was too late. Far too late. So when they started entering service in mid-1944, they ended up trying to protect the Japan East Indies route through the East and South China Seas. Not just because it was vital to the war effort, but because, frankly, there wasn't much else left of the empire to fight for. Just think about that. Once the Solomons campaign essentially wrapped up in November 1943 and the Central Pacific campaign started that same month, it only took about half a year for the U.S. to put troops on the Marianas where they could build airfields for bombers that could reach the home islands. And it only took about 9 months to hit Peleliu where bombers could hit the South China Sea. Just under a year from breaching the outer perimeter line at Tarawa to landing on Leyte. And that's not even counting the submarines. Compare that to the Solomons campaign, which arguably lasted from February 1942, with a quick diversion at Midway, until November 1943. Anyways, back to these ships. Quality was without question sacrificed for quantity. And it worked. A surprising number were commissioned in a pretty short time. Electric welding even being dared. Not the 200-ish Fletchers, but again, they were never going to win that one. Let's be clear here. Despite it being how they were used, these ships were not intended to be just rear echelon escorts only. They were meant to be frontline units. Even this wasn't enough, though, and many were canceled as the focus shifted to suicide weapons as they went from willing to die in battle to wanting to die in battle. One was even converted to a chitin suicide torpedo carrier. Matsu was started August 8, 1943, and completed April 28, 1944. Momo was started November 5, 1943, and completed June 10, 1944. Taki was started October 15, 1943, and completed June 16, 1944. Umi was started January 25, 1944, and completed June 28, 1944. Kua was started December 20, 1943, and completed July 15, 1944. Maki was started February 19, 1944, and completed August 10, 1944. Kiri was started February 1, 1944, and completed August 14, 1944. Sugi was started February 25, 1944, and completed August 15, 1944. Momi was started February 1, 1944, and completed September 3, 1944. Hinoki was started March 4, 1944, and completed September 30, 1944. Kashi was started May 5, 1944, and also completed September 30, 1944. Kaya was started April 10, 1944, and completed also September 30, 1944. Kaidi was started March 4, 1944, and completed October 30, 1944. Sakura was started June 2nd, 1944, and completed November 25th, 1944. Nara was started June 10th, 1944, and completed November 26th, 1944. Tsubaki was started June 20th, 1944, and completed November 30th, 1944. Kayaki was started June 22nd, 1944, and completed December 15th, 1944. Yanagi was started August 20th, 1944, and completed January 8th, 1945. Tachibana was started July 8th, 1944, and completed January 20th, 1945. Niri was started August 14th, 1944, and completed January 31st, 1945. Tsuta was started July 31st, 1944, and completed February 8th, 1945. Hagi was started September 11th, 1944, and completed March 1st, 1945. Kaki was started October 5th, 1944, and completed March 5th, 1945. Shi was started September 18th, 1944, and completed March 13th, 1945. Nashi was started September 1st, 1944, and completed March 15th, 1945. Sumiri was started October 21st, 1944, and completed March 26th, 1945. Inoki was started October 14th, 1944, and completed March 31st, 1945. Kusunoki was started November 9th, 1944, and completed April 28th, 1945. Odaki was started November 5th, 1944, and completed May 15th, 1945. Hatsuzakura was started December 4th, 1944, and completed May 18th, 1945. Kaba was started October 15th, 1944, and completed May 29th, 1945. Hatsuyumi was started December 8th, 1944, and completed June 18th, 1945. Main armament was 3 of the proven 127mm 40 caliber guns in 2 mounts, 1 single gun forward in an open-backed mount, and 2 at the stern in a completely open twin mount. The gun mount on the bow especially looks giant, but this just highlights how small these ships actually were. Torpedo armament was 1 armored quad mount between the funnels. There were no reloads. 2 depth charge launchers and 36 depth charges were initially carried, but this number would grow to 48. Type 93 sonar and Type 22 radar were fitted. Propulsion was provided by 2 boilers, each venting to its own funnel. These provided steam to the 2 turbines, which produced 19,000 horsepower, each driving one of the 2 propellers. This gave them a maximum speed of 27 knots, which was not inspiring for fleet work, but was plenty for the escort duties they ended up doing. They had 1 rudder. As for notable actions, on October 24th, 1944, Taki helped sink the submarine Shark. The next day, Maki, Kiri, Kua, and Sugi all took part in the Battle of Cape Engano. Taki and Kua took part in the December 3rd, 1944 Second Battle of Ormoc Bay, where Taki managed to sink the destroyer Cooper. Sugi, Kashi, and Kaya took part in the overnight December 26th, 27th, 1944 San Jose intrusion. In 1945, Taki was converted into a chitin carrier by putting a launch rail at the stern. Matsu was gunned down August 4th, 1944 near Chichijima. Kua was sunk December 3rd, 1944 at the Second Battle of Ormoc. Momo was sunk December 15th, 1944 near Luzon by the submarine Hawkbill. Momi was bombed and sunk near Manila January 5th, 1945. Hinoki was gunned down January 7th, 1945 while trying to escape Manila. Umi was bombed and sunk near Formosa January 31st, 1945. Inoki was sunk by a mine at Obama June 26, 1945, and scrapped in 1948. Sakura was sunk by a mine at Osaka, July 11, 1945. Yanagi was grounded at Ominato after being bombed July 14, 1945. Post-war, she was scrapped. Tachibana was bombed and wrecked July 14, 1945 in Hokkaido Hikodaki Bay. The damaged Nara, Tsubaki, and Niri were scrapped in 1948. Taki, Maki, Hagi, Sumiri, and Kusunoki were surrendered to the UK. Kiri, Kaya, Hatsuzakura, and Shi were handed over to the Soviets. Sugi, the damaged Kaidi, Tsuta, and Hatsuyumi were handed over to the Chinese at Shanghai. Kashi, Kaki, Kaba, Kiyaki, and Odaki were taken over by the U.S. Nashi was handed over to the U.S. post-war but was repaired and recommissioned into the JMSDF as Wakaba.